Hey everybody, Dr. Dan Yachter here, and this is Wednesday's news, views, and weekly updates. Thank you so much for joining me. Each week we do the segment to keep you informed of what's going on here clinically and also on the news horizon. Last night we had a phenomenal masterclass. Dr. Leif Mårtensson and Dr. Annette Mårtensson both taught together, tandem teaching masterclass, diabetes reversal, blood sugar control, and the feedback has been great. They did a phenomenal job. Dr. Annette, she shared about her journey, her transformative journey in regards to blood sugar, weight, and just the great transformation that's happened in her health overall. And the feedback's been phenomenal. So thank you for all the patients, or to all the patients who've given me feedback. And I was out of the office involved with family activities, but they did a phenomenal job. I'm going to go ahead and do a recap of what was covered at the masterclass, kind of a general recap, and then also tell you about what's coming up next month, a masterclass that I'll be teaching about on December 16th. This is something you definitely want to know about. Perhaps one of the most important health issues that we should all be concerned about today in regards to the environment, toxicity, and whatnot. So let me go ahead and jump into the overview of the content that was covered last night. Again, the topic was diabetes and blood sugar control, diabetes reversal and blood sugar control. And we know that we are living in a carb-crazed culture. And I don't really believe that carbohydrates are necessarily the villain. In fact, truth be told, I have a high carbohydrate diet, but complex carbohydrates, that's what fuels my body. I'm not a keto guy, not a paleo guy. I'm not a low carb guy, but I'm also not a garbage carb guy. I don't put a lot of refined processed stuff in my body, cookies, candy, cakes, things like that. I just stay away from it, but I do put good, healthy carbohydrates, potatoes, sweet potatoes, good rice, jasmine, basmati rices, and other carbohydrates that are healthy for the body and keep the body fueled and energized. So again, one of the things that can happen and will happen is if you do eat a lot of junky carbohydrates, it'll break your metabolism. And for those, especially who are genetically predisposed, you will end up with a diabetic condition if you push your body hard enough and far enough. So again, the concept is not necessarily that carbohydrates are bad. The wrong ones can do a lot of damage. But even at that, the key to understanding diabetes, the key to understanding blood sugar management, blood sugar control, mitigating the risk of developing diabetes is understanding your unique blood sugar makeup profile and understanding what your body does and how it really reacts and responds to sugar when it comes into your body. The only way to understand that and know that, and one of the major things that Dr. Annette Mårtensson discussed last night here, again, a nurse and chiropractor, 30 years experience, she discussed the fasting blood glucose. It's a continuous glucose monitor, the CGM, something that anybody can get, anybody can put on their arm. You can wear this and you can see, based upon your unique physiology, biochemistry, genetics, your medical history, everything that's going on inside of your body, okay, you can see what your body does, its unique response to foods as they're coming in real time. There's nothing more powerful than that. And because of this technology, she was able to crack the code on not only her weight loss, but I have known her for decades now, and I've seen just this incredible health transformation that has happened just by when she was at the office a couple of months ago. And I looked at her, I'm like, my gosh, not only are you leaner, significantly 50, 60 pounds leaner, but she just looked incredibly healthy and much younger. And this was all accomplished along with a lot of other things that she does with the health, but primarily the continuous blood glucose monitor. And so they talked quite a bit about this last night. And this is an important topic for many, many reasons. One of which we know, going back to one big study that's been done, 118,000 nurses in the Nurses Health Study for an entire 20-year follow-up time period, those with metabolic syndrome primarily having to do with blood glucose, hemoglobin A1C out of range, cholesterol, your waist to hip ratio, blood pressure, triglycerides are a big part of that picture. Low HDL, high fasting blood glucose, all of these are part of the metabolic syndrome. If they're out of range, you have a problem. And what was shown is in this nurses study, 118,000 nurses for this 20-year follow-up period, those with the metabolic syndrome, typically with 3 of those markers that I mentioned, especially high A1C, high fasting blood glucose, high insulin, those who had these things and diabetes had a 500% increased risk of developing heart disease. And this explains the finding that more than 50% of all diabetics already have cardiovascular disease when they're diagnosed with diabetes, and most have significant blocking of their arteries. I would say that's important to know. So again, the markers you want to track, and again, the most important one you could track with a continuous blood glucose monitor that you can get anywhere. You can get access to it online. If you want us to send you a link, you can find one and buy it pretty much anywhere. It's painless. You basically just plug it into your there's like a little apparatus that kind of snugly pops it into your arm. There's a very small needle that goes in, and it stays there, for a week or longer, and it literally continuously monitors your glucose, so you can see as food comes in, or even when you're not eating. A huge mystery to people are, for example, if you go for a blood draw early in the morning, they tell you to fast for 12 hours, 8 to 12 hours, and you go in for a blood draw on a fasted state, and your blood glucose is elevated or at a very high level, and it may not make sense. With a continuous blood glucose monitor, you can kind of backtrack, do some sleuth work, and figure out maybe the day before, or based upon your sleep, or based upon your emotional stress, based upon multiple factors, like what caused you to have a high blood glucose reading on your blood panel. So again, going through those metabolic syndrome groupings of markers, you want to look at, your waistline, blood pressure, your triglyceride level is a huge part of it, low HDL, and high fasting blood glucose. And I'd also throw in there insulin. You certainly want it under 10, optimally under 5. So we know, this is an important topic in regards to what's happened, for many reasons, but over the last, several decades, it's incredible what's happened with our population in terms of the numbers of people with diabetes. So the percentage of the population, so from we looked at a chart from 1958 till up until 10 years ago, that's what the CDC has published. So we're looking at about almost a 60-year period of time. We're looking at a radical increase in the percentage of the population in, say, 1958 with diabetes, 1%. So the percentage was about right around 1%. Today, it's close to 25% of the population with diabetes. That's astounding. And that's, again, a broad look at the US population. There are some geographical locations that have significantly larger percentages of their population with diabetes. It's a huge problem. So cost of diabetes, $413 billion. Dr. Leif reminded everybody last night that the GDP The gross domestic product of Sweden is $610 billion because, he's Swedish, of course. But so our cost of diabetes, what we spend on diabetes in this country is close to the entire yearly GDP of Sweden. In 2022, diabetes and its related complications accounted for $413 billion in total direct and indirect medical costs and lost work and wages in the US. That's crazy. Absolutely insane. Insulin resistance is a condition that can exist on its own or lead to prediabetes. And by the way, going back to what I just mentioned about the rise of diabetes, one of the things you could actually see in lockstep, that along with the rise of diabetes is also the rise in sedentary lifestyle. It literally goes in lockstep with the rise in diabetes. So the rise of computers, the amount of TVs, the amount of TV channels, the amount of sitting has a sedentary lifestyle has a radical impact on the odds of you developing diabetes. And so again, insulin resistance it's very important to understand insulin resistance in regards to diabetes, because what happens is, as time goes on, insulin is a hormone that's released by the pancreas, by the beta cells inside of your pancreas, in response or reaction to the amount of blood sugar that's coming in. Insulin's released. It's a hormone. It's released into the bloodstream. It's an endocrine hormone released by the pancreas into the bloodstream. Not all hormones inside of the pancreas are released into the bloodstream. Some are released directly into the digestive system. But this hormone goes into the blood system, the bloodstream, grabs on a blood sugar, and it carries it into the cells to be used for fuel. If your bloodstream is constantly bombarded with high levels of blood glucose, what's going to happen is the insulin is going to be constantly banging on the door of the cell membrane to let the insulin open it up to get the sugar in. What insulin resistance is, another name for diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is the cell membrane getting worn down from too much knocking by the insulin. It becomes desensitized and it no longer hears the insulin. And so it becomes resistant to the insulin, thereby causing the cell not to allow the sugar to get in or at the rate it should. Sugar backs up into the bloodstream. You get high blood sugar readings. The pancreas senses this, says, I need to crank up the production of insulin, put more insulin into the bloodstream to get the sugar out. And it just creates this kind of cyclical issue where more insulin creates more insulin resistance, more blood sugar in the bloodstream backing up, telling the beta cells of the pancreas to produce more insulin. And as this goes on, if it goes on long enough, the pancreas eventually will get burned out. The beta cells get fried. And now you could be looking at a situation where it's no longer insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, but now the pancreas just stops making insulin. And now you're left with type 1 diabetes, which is insulin dependent diabetes, where you have to actually take insulin exogenously. And if you don't, you can die. You have to now be on insulin for the rest of your life. So again, some of the additional things that were discussed by Dr. Leif and Dr. Annette were the biggest culprits, the foods that cause diabetes. Again, it's been shown that up to 30% of our childhood population now is either pre-diabetic or diabetic. So type 2 diabetes was for eons of time called adult onset diabetes. And now up to 30% of our childhood population has pre-diabetes or full-blown diabetes. That's crazy. It can no longer be called adult onset diabetes. So again, we went through the foods, or they went through the foods last night that are the biggest culprits in frying out the insulin receptors on the cells. They went through what insulin resistance is. They showed pictures and diagrams. Symptoms of type 2 diabetes like blurry vision, frequent infections, tingling, numbing in the feet and the hands, weight gain or loss without trying, slow healing of cuts and wounds, frequent urination, increased thirst, always feeling hungry, feeling very tired. And again, diabetes, and the reason why this topic is such an important topic, and why I had Dr. Annette come in and teach this with Dr. Leif last night, is that 98 million Americans have prediabetes, 38 million Americans have full-blown diabetes. There are 1.5 million new cases every year. It's epidemic. 500 million diabetics around the world. So again, this is a chronic condition where the body has high blood sugar, glucose, because it doesn't make enough insulin, or primarily the cell membranes are not responding to that insulin properly. The best place to start, if you've never had it measured, is have your insulin, your fasting blood glucose, and your hemoglobin A1C looked at on a blood panel. Really, the optimal way of understanding your blood glucose and really understanding what your body's doing with the sugar on a continual basis is a continual glucose monitor, CGM. It's the ideal way to do it. And that's how you really learn about your biochemical biography, what's unique to your body. Every person's different. On a blood marker or blood panel, you can confirm if you're a diabetic, if your hemoglobin A1C is 6.5% or higher, your fasting plasma glucose is 126 or higher. And certainly if your insulin is creeping up beyond 10, 15, 20, medically, if you're over 23, you're considered, you're in big trouble on your insulin level. But it is reversible. Adult onset diabetes, not type 1 is a little different. Even though, we talk about that, you can reverse type 2 diabetes. It's documented medically. Type 2 diabetes is a reversible dietary disease, a disease of too much blood sugar in the body. The number one method that Dr. Annette and Dr. Leif talked about last night is the Stelo blood glucose biosensor. You go to www.stelo.com, STELO.com, and you can monitor it with an app. You basically just get it snapped into your body here. It goes right on, and it stays on. When I did mine, I kept it on for a week. I tracked it through an app. But again, if we truly knew physiologically how what we eat affected us, we would make better choices. So again, real-time data is invaluable. You literally can see real-time how foods are affecting your body, affecting your blood glucose, allow you to potentially reverse your diabetes, your type 2 diabetes. But more than that, if your blood sugar is managed better, you just feel better. You have better energy. Your mind is clear. You sleep better. You have better quality of life. Your joints feel better. Blood sugar radically impacts your hormonal balance. Every aspect, every dimension of your life, your health is affected by blood sugar. You just have a healthier, happier, elevated life. And that's what really this topic in this conversation is about. There are supplements that were talked about last night. Our go-to supplement here is called Ultraplex Sugar Balance. It has berberine, alpha lipoic acid, which helps make the cells of your body more insulin sensitive. It lowers sugar production in the liver. Our Ultraplex Heart, which has bergamot in it, which makes, again, the cell membranes more insulin sensitive, and it lowers blood glucose levels naturally. And then, of course, the perennial favorite is the EPA, the fish oil, the omega-3 fatty acids, which help with insulin sensitivity and glycemic control. So again, if you were here last night, we gave out special gifts. We had a raffle drawing. We had our Black Friday special early if you were here. And just from the feedback, I wasn't here, but the feedback I got was awesome. One of the things that everybody loved about Dr. Annette is her personal story, her transformation, and how she did it. Very powerful. Her struggles, what she had gone through, and then her victory over her health, over her body, over her physical, mental health, and now her ability to make just great choices regarding her health, because she now understands her unique physical health blueprint. And the way she did that was with the continuous blood glucose monitor. It's transformed her life and her health. So I strongly recommend, if you really want to do a deeper dive, one of the greatest biohacks out there, if you want to call it that, is the continuous blood glucose monitor. So something for me to personally share, around this time of year, I do a lot of testing on my own body. One of the things that I've just done, tomorrow morning I'm doing I do it every 2 or 3 years. I do a very extensive blood panel on myself. It usually involves somewhere around 18, 19 blood vials. My phlebotomist, her eyes get really big, and she always asks me, "Are you sure you want to do all these markers?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Every 2 to 3 years, I do an extensive blood panel, and I'm getting ready to do that tomorrow morning at 6:30. I'll be doing that, and then along with that, I do another test called the NutriVal. NutriVal looks at vitamin status, my fish oil status, heavy metals, GI health, and a whole bunch of more different things, organic acids, and also blood plasma vitamin status. It looks like 2 dimensions of nutrient status. The nutrients that are the vitamins, nutrients that are just floating around my bloodstream, and then the ones that are actually integrated into the cells. One of the tests that I did last week was the total toxic burden, showing me environmental toxins, heavy metals, and molds. It's the most extensive environmental or total toxic test you can do on the market. And I just did that. I'll be talking about that on December 16th. The next masterclass coming up, which I'll be teaching personally, is the Detoxify or Die masterclass. I teach it every year, and I'll be discussing what I do to test my body for toxicity every couple of years, what showed up on my recent test that I think everybody needs to know and see, and the strategies that I'm using to get rid of that toxicity or to lower the toxic burden, because we know that if you have too much toxic burden, that could be carcinogenic. It could lead to cancer. It could lead to body cancers, brain cancers, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and all kinds of horrible things to grow in the body. So I'll be sharing my personal lab tests and showing you the strategies that I'm currently working on to get my body cleaner than I thought it was. So mark your calendars, December 16th, Tuesday night, 6:30 p.m. right here, the Detoxify or Die Masterclass taught by yours truly, Dr. Dan Yachter, the chiropractor. So everybody have a great Wednesday. Thank you for joining me on this version of News, Views, and Weekly Updates. We'll talk with you next Wednesday. God bless.